Even though the United States is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, 45 million Americans receive some assistance through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as food stamps, designed to reduce food insecurity. But next month, recent changes to SNAP could leave up to 1 million people without enough to eat. Here with us now is Dr. Mariana Chilton, an associate professor at Drexel University's School of Public Health and director of the Center for Hunger-Free Communities, to talk to us about who is going hungry in America and why, how the changes to SNAP will affect them, and how we might solve this problem. Welcome, Mariana.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So when people think about food insecurity, they think about people being hungry, not enough food on the table. But is it more than that?
Oh, absolutely. It's a much broader concept. Food insecurity means the lack of access to enough food for an active and healthy life. So the first part, there is some hunger, not having enough. But the second part is about health. It's about having enough of the right kinds of food.
What are some of the costs and the long-term effects of food insecurity?
Oh, sure. Food insecurity affects people throughout the lifespan. So if you think about very young children, food insecurity has been shown to affect their health and their development. It also affects children during their school years. Children who are food insecure are less likely to be able to concentrate. Their scores in math and reading are much lower than children who are not food insecure, and they have more behavioral problems. And among adults, food insecurity can cause major problems with diabetes and obesity, chronic health disease. It's very hard to manage your diabetes if you're also food insecure. And among elders, it affects activities of daily living. It's associated with depression. So all around, food insecurity is very harmful behaviorally, meant for mental health and also physical health.
There are around 17 million households in this country that experience food insecurity. I mean, how is that possible in a country as wealthy as ours? What are the root causes of this?
It really has a lot to do with the economy. A lot of people are out of jobs, but it also has to do with the history of racism and discrimination in our country, the lack of enough jobs that pay a living wage or an adequate wage where you can support your family. But also, we have really pulled away from the importance of our public assistance programs.
Is it particularly bad now, or has it always been this way in this country?
Oh, actually, things are much better than they used to be. In the 40s, 50s, and 60s, there were children that actually died of starvation among American Indian communities and in Appalachia. And it was really because pediatricians were seeing families that couldn't afford to feed their children that the modern food stamp program came into existence. Really, without SNAP, we would have major malnutrition in this country.
About 45 million people receive these SNAP benefits, but I understand that recent changes to the program mean that up to 1 million people could lose these benefits. Can you just explain to us what's going on and why now?
SNAP is a program that primarily serves families with children, seniors and the elderly, and also people who are disabled. There's a very small percentage of people who receive SNAP benefits who don't have a child and who are considered to be an able-bodied adult, and that's an adult without dependents. And that's the group that's severely at risk in the coming months. And that's because those individuals used to be required to do work participation in order to receive SNAP benefits. During the recession, when it was so hard to find jobs, it was fantastic that our national government decided to make sure that states would waive that requirement for individuals. Now that many of us think that the economy is recovering, that jobs are now more available, those requirements are now being put back into place. There are 23 states now that are allowing those, what's called those waivers to expire, and they're going to start requiring individuals to do work participation.
Can you talk a little bit more about who these people are?
Most of the people who are receiving SNAP that don't have someone that they're taking care of are people with very low education. They're often, they could be veterans. They also could be people coming out of prison. So this group is a very high-risk group. They don't have a lot of skills. They need extra supports. They need job training and also behavioral health supports. And also, they may be living in communities where the jobs really, our economy hasn't recovered.
Some people might listen to this and think, you know, what is wrong about having a time limit for able-bodied people to, you know, receive these benefits, or a requirement that they're working or at least looking for work? I mean, Is there a danger that people might become too reliant on the program?
That's not something that we've seen in the research, and as a researcher, I'm always looking for empirical evidence. What's the reality, and what do the numbers really tell us? And what we know about people who are able-bodied without dependents are often are looking for jobs or have some kind of a behavioral issue where they really need extra behavioral health supports and more job training. And we can't just expect a person who may be living in rural New Mexico, for instance, where the unemployment rates are very high, someone who has no car and has very low skills and may not even have access to the internet, helping them to find a job takes some extra effort, some extra investment.
Unemployment has fallen dramatically in the last few years, but SNAP enrollment has remained at record highs. Why is that?
Well, you have to think about, first of all, there are many people on SNAP who are actually working full-time, but their wages are so low that they're still eligible for SNAP. They need to rely on SNAP to supplement those wages. But also, you have a lot of jobs that have come back into the marketplace that are not full-time. They may be part-time, where people don't have control over their hours from one week to the next. They don't know what their hours are going to be. That makes it very hard for them to manage looking for another job or a higher-paying job, or to be able to help their families and help their communities.
What is the income threshold for receiving this benefit?
For a family of 3, it's about $20,000, or family of 4, about $24,000 a year, which is actually quite low. And so there's really no way that you can actually figure out how to pay rent and pay for food with that kind of money.
Do you think that hunger and food insecurity is a solvable problem?
Oh, it's absolutely solvable. We know that we can make major improvements to SNAP and the other nutrition programs, and we need to hold corporations accountable for the wages that they actually pay to make sure that they're not relying too much on the federal government to supplement wages. And we need to make sure we're looking at different pockets. Where are the rates of hunger the highest? We need to really focus on the very high-risk areas and people who are high risk. That's people with disabilities, that's American Indians, that's veterans, people coming out of prison. If we focus on the high-risk folks, we can do a whole lot more to end hunger in this country.
Are Americans who are living with food insecurity part of the national political discussion that's going on right now?
Currently, they're not. I don't see any real effort on the part of the candidates to really engage in a significant way with people who are low income and who are food insecure. And they are some of the most disenfranchised voters because they don't have access to the internet, they also don't have access to the information, and they feel like they're being judged by people who are in power. They feel as if they're not part of the solution. How can we possibly think that we can address hunger and poverty in America if we don't have people who've experienced hunger and poverty at the table telling us, how does this SNAP program work? How do housing subsidies work? How difficult is it really to find a job? Something that's based on reality. If we could have more engagement from people who are poor, and we can make the infrastructure there, and that we could have the candidates to reach out, I think we could have something very transformative with our democracy. If we can transform our democracy, have more engagement, that too can help us to solve hunger.
Mariana Chilton, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.